Welcome to the All Central Podcast. I'm your host, Pastor Larry Kirk. I am joined today by the great Brit from Baltimore, Pastor Jonathan Prothero.
Thank you. Welcome.
So good to have you, man.
Good to be back.
So good to have you, man. I had your dad last week. Was amazing.
Yeah,
incredible.
Well, I haven't seen it. I was away, but that will drop, I believe, next Wednesday.
I believe so. And you're gonna, it was such a great, easy conversation with your dad. It was so good. I loved just hanging out with him and just picking his brain a little bit on some things and all things church, of course, but because your dad is just such a good leader, and had some really good, just good feedback from him on stuff about our church and just in general, but just our conversation overall was just really rich and good when it came to his message on communion. What a powerful message, man, that was.
I haven't heard it.
Are you? That's right. You weren't here that weekend.
I wasn't here that weekend. I was asleep.
Oh man,
in bed. I won't lie. That's exactly what I was doing.
Yeah. Well,
for context,
let's put that in context.
Saturday, was the wedding day. It finally happened. The big second celebration. Family were here and friends.
I think we should do that every year with you guys.
I can't afford that.
Because I loved your...
You're giving me anxiety already.
Oh, man, I'm sorry.
Palpitations.
No, it was so fun with your family. Your sisters are awesome.
Yeah, they're a hoot.
They were great. They were fantastic. I loved hanging out with them a little bit. And your mom.
She's a sweetie.
Man, she is.
She's a sweetie
Such
pie.
A sweet
She's
lady.
She's that classic. She's an artist.
Yeah.
Very, adventurer, very free, very introverted, introspective.
She'll hang introverted,
out. I mean, she'll hang out, and then all of a sudden she'll disappear into her bedroom for 3 days.
And then you're like, where did Jackie go?
Where did Mum go?
Where did she go?
What's she doing? Okay.
No, but she's so sweet.
Oh, she could lock herself away in her studio for a week and paint, and she'd be the happiest person on earth.
That's hilarious, man.
Yeah,
that was just good. It's just good getting to know your family and some of your brother-in-laws there as well, and your little nephews running around, man. They're full of energy, brother.
All of that. Yeah,
I want some of that.
Yeah, I know.
That was amazing.
It was the first time I got to meet Oliver. First time. So 4 and 2. So William and Oliver, but. Such a good time. Wedding was a blast. I saw you on the dance floor.
I was on the dance floor a little bit.
Pastor Larry, he's got some moves.
I was cutting a rug a little bit. I was out there,
scraping it up.
I was trying to get my wife out there, but she wasn't having it because she was wearing heels, and so she doesn't wear heels all the time. So it's like my feet are killing me.
Yeah, you don't want to be toppling over or breaking an ankle.
Yeah.
I saw you over talking to the DJ.
I was
requests.
I was a little bit of requests, a little bit of California Love, Tupac.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, Dr. Dre,
all clean versions.
All clean versions. Yes, clean radio versions.
Radio.
Going back to my '80s roots a little bit.
Yeah.
So no, but it was such a blast. You guys did put such a good shindig on. It was awesome.
Yeah,
I loved it.
Shenanigans. No, it was such a fun time, so emotional. And then so that was Saturday night, so I was not up Sunday morning.
Oh, of course not, man. I mean, I wouldn't expect you.
I sent my envoy, Dad.
Yeah,
but I did hear he ripped it up. Communion is a very overdone sermon. I've heard him do it in the past, so I'm sure it was an iteration of what he's done in the past. But I hope it was a fresh take and just a different way of looking at it. I'm sure it was
totally
good. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Community and calls. I mean, I never heard a communion message wrapped around community and calls, and it was just how he brought it around to that, and how it was not just a few minutes together at a supper table, man. It was all night. It was like they were hanging out.
Right.
It's family time, and I need to share some stuff with you.
Yeah.
That kind of message, and it was just really good. It's just really, really impactful for the church, and hopefully our Central has taken that and into their own life, personal life, and looked at communion in a different way.
Yeah, it's interesting. While we're there talking about communion and food and breaking bread, there's definitely, coming from Europe, quite a different culture around that in the States. Particularly when you go out, I've noticed that in America it's quite quick.
Yeah,
the servers are very efficient and they're good, but they need that next table in.
They do,
to get the tips. And
yeah.
Whereas in Europe, they don't. Their money.
They're not that
doesn't
pushy.
predominantly come from tips.
Okay.
So people in Europe, when they go out, they'll go out for 2-3 hours easily for a meal. And of course that's happened here too.
Yeah.
But just in general, I think taking time to really sit down and do food well.
Yeah.
Together.
I actually leave on that note.
Yeah.
I actually leave more money if I'm sitting there longer than I probably should.
Should have. Yeah.
When I'm sitting. So I actually leave more than 20%. I give like 25, almost 30%, depending on how long I've been there.
Interesting.
Because I know that they really rely on the tips here.
Yeah,
in America. So that's one of the things that I do.
Right.
Try to do. I'm just aware of it.
Yeah.
And,
but so that's kind of going out. But then I wonder if in the culture that seeped a little bit into even our homes of like, we've got to eat, got to get to work. So breakfast is in the car.
Yeah. So I have a story about that. So my mother-in-law was visiting this past month, and just awesome to have her. She's 88 and just lives by herself and still independent and everything. And so we had her down and just hanging out. And, she always laughs at me because I'm the first one done. Like I eat so fast.
Right.
You would have thought I'd have grown up with like 5 other brothers.
Get your food in while you can.
Get your food in while you can.
And that was my childhood.
Yeah. That was your childhood, right? Yeah. And so they were probably like, let's eat before Jonathan gets here because Johnny's gonna, all sisters are like the boy's gonna just stuff it, and so I'm up and I'm already cleaning.
Right.
I'm already washing dishes. I'm washing my own dishes. Pearl and her mom sitting there eating.
Yeah.
I'm already cleaning dishes.
Yeah.
I'm already, and then I'm watching them, and she's laughing at me like I'm such a slow eater. It's like, no, Mom, take your time. It's okay. That's fine. And then when she's done, I'm picking up her plate and washing it and putting it away. Like I'm already ahead of the game. Yeah. And you're so right.
Yeah. She's from a different culture.
Totally.
So Latino culture,
family,
food all day,
baby.
Like this is what we do.
Yeah. Oh man, she homemade flour tortillas, brother.
You were making no, it wasn't enchiladas.
It was enchiladas.
Oh, it was enchiladas.
The other day. Yeah, enchiladas and tamales. Tamales was 2 weeks ago.
Just making everyone hungry as they watch this.
And fat. Can I use that word on the podcast? Because that's what I am right now. That's what I feel like anyway. Because I have eaten more tortillas than any man should in the last month. Yeah. But just homemade food all the time. So their culture is family, get around the table, celebrate it. And I've just noticed in my particular family over the years, not speaking just for me, but also going back to my mom and dad, like even around Thanksgiving time, it's like fast. We eat fast when we should be taking time. Taking time.
It's huge. And the prayers that they would have had, like you said, it's an all-night affair. Even the weddings back in Jesus' day, it wasn't just a day. It was day upon day upon day.
Yeah.
It's like, let's do this again.
That's why the wine ran out. That's why Jesus had to turn the water into wine.
Yeah. So, but spending that time, like I was raised Italian households, very similar.
Oh, yeah.
And you're outside and there's long tables and it's just, it's what they do. It's so much of their culture is built around the communion table.
Yeah.
As in, not communion as as in the bread and wine, but communion as in we're together, breaking bread, and so interesting. I will go back and listen to the message. I'm sure it was.
I'm going to shame you into it. That's what I want to do.
All right, you have to pop quiz next week.
Yeah, pop quiz next week.
Yeah. But this week you spoke, and great message, little mini series, new season, new you.
Yeah, new season, new you. Want to talk about the past, and this week coming up, we're going to talk about purpose, and those two are linked because if you can't get past your past, you're not going to really fulfill your purpose, right? Because if that's all you're going to do in life is to look in the rearview mirror, you're never going to move forward. And I think the past is probably one of those messages that I think probably people need to hear more consistently in their life. That our past is no more, and what Jesus has done for us already, it's already there for us. The purpose is there. God has gifted us. He's placed some gifts and callings in our life that if we can't get beyond our past, well, it'll never come to fruition. And it's not God's fault. It's ours. We're just so hung up. Mm-hmm. And that's why Paul said, I really believe why Paul said, listen, forgetting those things which are behind. And again, I mentioned it this weekend. It's not just the failures in our life. It's also our successes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a big one.
Yeah, it is.
Most people don't consider that.
Yeah. Cause a lot of people, you'll see it with teams, right? Maybe on the pitch for, soccer, or, for me, for American football, you'll see it like they'll win a Super Bowl or go to the Super Bowl or go to some championship. And then all of a sudden next year it's a letdown, because they're holding on to the successes back here, but that's not going to, what's going to get them through to the next season of success. What worked back here is not going to work next year.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
It's going to be different.
Do you think as well, bringing that more personally, that some people ignore the disappointments of their present because they're so latched onto the successes of their past? So in other words, if they feel like their life is a failure right now, you can block a lot of that failure out by talking about how amazing you were back in the day.
Oh, yeah. The older I get, the better I was.
Well, yeah. A phrase. Yeah. It's a phrase you used. It's a great phrase. Yeah. The older I was. Yeah. Back in my day, I used to, I was the captain
back
of the football team. And I was
wear the Letterman's jacket, and it's still too short for me today.
Yeah. When in reality, you were okay.
And exactly.
It was a small high school.
It's okay. I have a Hall of Fame plaque in my office, but whatever. You say whatever, John, you want.
Right, exactly. But you're right. So people can get caught up in the cycle of their failures, but they can also get caught up in the cycle of their past successes. It's like, well, that was cool 10 years ago, but what are you doing today?
That's right. That's right. Even for a church, like we're celebrating 40 years this year as a church,
which is amazing.
It's awesome, amazing. It's incredible. And so many successful stories over the years, so many beautiful stories, so many lives that were changed, people coming to Christ, being filled with the Holy Spirit, God, missionaries coming out of here, pastors, preachers, that came out of this ministry, including myself. I mean, I was a teenager when that happened, when church just got started, Central, my dad started it. And so through all of that, you see so many successful stories, but if all we do is we just focus on those things and how successful it used to be, or what we think success was then, and it doesn't look like the same type of success today. How many of us know, you know this, there's new challenges that are happening every year now in church world. It just feels that way. It took years ago, it took decades for things to change. Now it's almost year upon year. Things are shifting so fast and moving quickly. And so you have to shift with that. You have to pivot with that. You have to move with that. And so success last year, for this year, for us, 2022, moving into 2023, it's going to be different. And if we focus on our successes back here, we'll never. And look, it's good to celebrate them. It's good to, listen, I am all for celebration. Let's throw a party. Let's celebrate that. But it's not going to be. If we just continue to focus on our past successes, we'll never ever continue to move the church, or even move our life, or however you put this in context with your own personal life. You'll never be able to enjoy the successes of the future because we're just stuck in the past. Yeah,
it's often something you'll hear from church people, particularly if they've been in church for a long time, 30 years, because there are success stories, and people may make comment or mention of, back in the day, the worship team used to be this and this and this, and it's amazing. Or back in the day, the youth team used to be 300 big and strong, and and that's great. That's amazing. The impact and the healing and the prophetic moments, all of that. But that's not our reality right now. And so we can get it does us no good to get hung up on those past successes.
That's right.
The question, like Paul says, is where are we moving towards? It's great to celebrate them, great to acknowledge them, but we can't live there.
That was the 3 commitments of a visionary, right? One of them was, I'm not settling.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm not going to settle for the successes of our yesterday or the failures of our yesterday. And we're just not going to settle there. We haven't arrived yet. In other words, what he's saying, I haven't arrived yet.
Right.
And I think that attitude is a great attitude to have in life.
Yeah.
Just haven't arrived yet.
Yeah.
And he could, listen, he could have rested on his own laurels his own successes, he never did. He always was pressing forward,
right?
Pressing toward the prize, he said.
Yeah, because he made it. If you think about his culture and his world, he became the rabbi.
He did.
You've graduated. That's it. You've got the PhD.
Listen, you got the letter from Paul.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like nobody else was writing letters like that.
No.
You know, to the church.
At all. You know? But yeah, the fact that he just kept pushing forward.
Yeah.
So obviously our successes can become a real issue. And I think even if I think about actually now and I contemplate my own life, so often when I've reached a goal or had a success is often when I've relaxed.
Yeah.
Like, we did it.
Yeah.
And like you said, we settle almost into, but that was great. That was a good moment. And then it's like we take the foot off the gas a little bit because it's like, I've crossed the finish line. I made it.
It can be an enemy of tomorrow.
There you go. That's a great way of saying it. That's a really good way of saying it. Yeah. Your successes of today can be the enemy of tomorrow. Look at that. We're just writing.
Somebody write that down. Can you guys jot that down?
It's my new next sermon. Please jot that down.
Please jot that down for Jonathan. You don't have to give me credit for it.
That's fine. Yeah. I do one time and then it's mine.
Yeah, and then it's yours.
It's like what I do with jokes. Yeah. I tell people I'll credit you twice this joke and then it's my joke.
And then it's my joke.
Yeah.
It's great.
So successes I think are much more subversive in the way that they function to keep us locked in the past, and to keep us cycling that. But then the more obvious one is our failures.
Yeah,
failures we understand quicker.
Yeah,
it's much easier for us to comprehend how they keep us trapped in a cycle of looking backwards rather than forwards.
Yeah, and I think that really goes back to I shared a little bit about this, and I don't know which message it was, but it may have been on all three. I don't know. When you preach 3 times during the weekend, you're not sure what you say. After a while, you're like, you're on point on something, but you're not sure if you said that, which service you said that in.
Absolutely.
But a couple of things that come to mind when it comes to that is the very thing the enemy wants to do is render us useless. Mm-hmm. And so if he can keep reminding us of our past, like there was a moment in all of our lives where we felt unforgivable or unlovable or whatever that is in your life that just keeps perpetuating that stuff in your life, your past. And so I think sometimes when you get to that place where that's all you hear and that's all you start to believe, it starts to become what scriptures call a stronghold in your life. And so you're believing actually in a lie, because the ultimate reality is Christ has set us free from that we are loved before we ever loved him. And we are forgiven before we ever asked for forgiveness. It's already true. Mm-hmm. That's the ultimate reality of it. And if we start believing that, then eventually it does render us to a place where, you know what, I don't feel worthy of mentoring someone because this is how I feel about myself. I'm not going to invest in someone else's life when my life feels like a wreck. And I think that's the story of Peter, that we can be imperfect and still have great impact, which Jesus shows us that. God shows us that throughout Scripture, that we're imperfect people that can make great impact for God's kingdom.
Yeah.
When we get to the place where we don't, buy into the lie of, what, I'm useless. No, you are useful for God's kingdom.
Mm. And it's so often it's just about finding your lane or finding that what you're gifted at.
Yeah.
That thing that you are called to do, that thing your purpose to do, finding your sweet spot.
What's your lane? Let's talk about that. What's your lane? What do you feel like your lane is for, like, what God's using you in and at this time, but also, like, what do you feel like your purpose is?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. Probably something you'd have to come back to time and time again. If you'd asked me that 5 years ago, it would be different. To what I'd say it is now. Yeah. And I will qualify what I'm about to say with this, that I think purpose, in terms of my life's purpose or your life's purpose, can be achieved in many ways. Mm-hmm. There's no one strict path to accomplishing what you need to accomplish. Yep. In other words, there's freedom to make decisions, not any decision, but there's always a number of doors that I think God gives us freedom to choose from.
Yeah, we make plans, God orders our steps, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So like I chose to come to Baltimore. Now, if I hadn't chose to come to Baltimore and I chosen another path, does that mean I've completely missed my purpose and God can't use me? That's nonsense.
Yeah.
God can accomplish his purpose whether I'm here in Baltimore or whether I'm in Copenhagen or whether I'm in, as long as I stay engaged with God.
Yeah.
So if I'm listening to him saying, God, keep working through me, he can work through me no matter where I'm
situated. What you're saying is people can make in moments like that where they feel like they've made this massive mistake in journeying somewhere, and yet God can still fulfill their purpose in their life, as long as, you said though, their focus was on the Lord.
Keep Jesus central in your life.
Central in your life.
Keep Jesus. And there are kairos moments where I think God says, no, this is the door.
Sure.
This is the decision. Sure. I don't want you to look anything else. There are those moments.
Did you have that when you came here, or no? Or you just felt like, no, you know what, this is probably the right good thing for me? Or
this felt like a door moment.
Okay.
In saying that. But I think even if I got that wrong,
yeah,
even if I'd been disobedient, I think God still would have found a way, know, and no, God, I want to chase a different job for more money. Okay, maybe I strayed from the path a little bit in terms of my intention, but I still think he course corrects and creates new paths for us,
he does.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, totally, yeah. Because I think some people get stuck on one thing, and then they've went off kilter or off the rails on something in their life.
That's it.
And it's over for me. Right. I don't have God's done with me.
Yeah.
And that's the part where I know the enemy just beats people up with it.
Beats people up. Yeah. But it's a false image of what purpose is. I use the image of your purpose is like an ocean. If you head in the general direction, you'll get wet. Yeah. And there's like, if the ocean is all of that, I can go there. There's be 1,000 paths. But if I stay engaged with Jesus, I will get to Jesus eventually. I will find my purpose.
It's like somebody was talking to me last night after our Monday night service, and they were just talking about their, this is where I think God wants me to go. I'm like, well, okay, hold on for a second. Be faithful in the little things.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't mean that you start there.
Right.
You may end up there. You may not.
Right.
But engage somewhere. And get involved in some capacity, and then be faithful with that, whatever that is, at whatever level it is. And when you're faithful with that, God starts to show you the rest.
Exactly, because your purpose is intertwined in other people's decisions as well. So, for example, if you had said no to me coming here,
right?
Well, I have no power of influence over that. So you have to be obedient to God in order for me to fulfill my purpose. And not just you, but there's a whole series of...
think if I wouldn't have done that.
Well, think if you had...
That would have been terrible.
But
we might not be sitting here right now doing that.
Might not be sitting here.
There's no way.
Exactly. Yeah. But so think of Joseph, for example. If his brothers hadn't put him into slavery, would Joseph still have fulfilled his purpose? I think so.
I think so.
I think it would have taken a different route.
Yeah.
But I think God would have still worked out his purposes.
God still had to work out some of the stuff in Joseph's life, though.
Yeah.
He would have used his brothers in that moment, maybe something else down the road.
Exactly.
To get him to the place where he was designed to be.
Yeah. So we could go down the whole thing of predestination and all of that. I don't want to get into that.
We don't get in the weeds on that.
In the weeds on that. And you asked me a basic question, like what's my, right now, I feel like I'm in a season of development.
Yeah.
My purpose is to, obviously, personally, I feel like it's to develop my communication, develop my leadership, develop my understanding of church and governance and how that functions, and to deepen my knowledge into those areas. Overall, I feel like, when we look at the fivefold ministries into the body of preachers, pastors, teachers, apostles, and prophets, I think I fit into a teacher/pastor role.
Yeah.
I would say ultimately that's kind of where it's headed. That's where I feel graced. It's where I feel there's an ease.
I think it's obvious to people.
Yeah, I and without sounding like I have a big head, it's over time it's become more obvious to me too. So it didn't start off with that clarity, but I think in the process of growing, it's like, this is, and experimenting, this is what I'm good at. This is what I feel like I have something to say. Not everybody has something to say.
Sure. Sure.
So yeah, that's kind of like that. That's how I would see it. But within that, there's 1,000 purposes that we all have to fulfill.
Yeah.
There's Matthew 28, which we all have to fulfill.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's all of our purpose.
Go into all the world. People. Yeah, disciple people.
Yeah. But in terms of how that functions for me personally, that's slightly different. I think that's more in the teacher role. Yeah. What I'm not gifted at is event planning, administration.
Says Amanda.
Yeah, organizing. Yeah, because she's just done a whole wedding and I've sat on the sidelines like.
just checking the boxes for her, right? Like, okay, honey, I'm going to do the to-do list.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I'm doing the to-do list.
And you didn't make up the to-do list. You did the to-do list.
I did the to-do list. We had this shared to-do list on our phones and she was like, I want to see when they're ticked off.
Oh, man. Oh, man. That's accountability there,
accountability.
brother.
She didn't trust me at all. Yeah. I don't trust me.
That's great. That's great. But going back to what we originally just started talking about, just from that standpoint, if you had allowed your past to continue to hang over your life, you'd have never said yes to this opportunity. You'd have never just gotten out of your own way. And who knows where you'd be still.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
I think there's a point where the candid way of saying it, and this is hard to say without sounding loving, or at anyway, I'll just say it. There does come a point where you just have to get over it. And that sounds super harsh, but you don't understand the abuse I face. You don't understand the poverty. You don't understand they left me, they betrayed me. You don't understand the mistakes and the shame I'm feeling.
Yeah.
You're right. I haven't walked your shoes. I don't fully understand. But I do know that there's a point, like Jesus, where the woman caught in the act of adultery is brought to him. There is a point where Jesus writes a line in the sand. And that's obviously just a metaphor for what when is your line in the sand? Like, when are you going to get on with your life?
Yeah.
So your past is your past and it happened to you and it's real, it's valid. You have scars and you cannot change that part of your story. But you don't have to pick at your scars. You don't have to keep opening the wound and pouring salt in them.
Yeah.
And so there's a healing process that happens. It's on you, it's marked you, but it doesn't define you. And that's eventually the place you have to come to. Or as you know, it's really sad when you have people 10, 20, 30 years on and they never moved forward and they're still talking about that ache, that pain, that loss. And it's sad because you just think, you have so much you could have given and could have done, but you're missing it.
Well, it's like, living in the past, I think I said this, living in the past is like death. Because you're not living in the present when all the liveliness of life is around you.
Right. Yeah.
If you're back here, you're never enjoying now.
Yeah.
You'll never enjoy the nows.
Yeah. But past is only there to enhance your present and to make better decisions in the present.
Yeah.
The rearview mirror is helpful. You do need it. That's why they're in the car.
Yeah.
But you can't stare at it the whole time because it'll take you 5 minutes and you hit them.
You keep going backwards though. That's the only way, you can actually, your pathway is back when you stare in the rear view.
Yeah. Yeah. Those without vision cast off restraint or they perish.
They perish.
If you don't know where you're going because you're looking that way.
Yeah, don't preach my sermon next week.
Oh, right, sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking.
Proverbs.
No, it's such a
Proverbs 29. It's one I come back to quite often, time and time again. It's such an important.
It's a staple.
Staple for any leader, any person trying to move forward.
Visionary. Yeah, absolutely. So I made a statement. You got to shut the door to your past. And we kind of unpacked the story a little bit in John 21 with Peter and Jesus on the beach, and that beautiful kind of moment that, Jesus asked him 3 times, "Do you love me?" And we know that the word love is translated 3 different ways in that moment, but I think it was more significant in that Jesus was driving home something in that moment for him. And I think, John's writing this, so John recognizes that Peter's getting upset, and this may have been the tone of his voice when he answered him the 3rd time. Jesus, you know all things,
right? Like
a frustration or facial feature. What was John writing there? And he said, well, he said Peter was a little upset with this moment, and I think how awkward during that time was that meal when they're having, because that happened after the meal.
Yeah.
So how awkward was that moment when you're sitting there and Jesus is actually fixing you breakfast and you just denied him 3 times. And that has to be going through his head in that moment. It has to be just, I don't know about you, but I'd be like, we got to talk about this. I mean, I don't know what I would be like in that moment, just the feeling of knowing that I actually denied him 3 times. He knows about it. And
everyone knows about it.
Everybody knows about it.
We're all sitting here waiting for the hammer to come down.
You're just waiting for something, and he doesn't. He just brings up, "Do you love me?" And he just goes back to purpose again. Feed my sheep.
Yeah.
Feed my lambs.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. That to me is how we can shut the door to our past, is how God sees it. And how he dealt with it, even in an own personal, in a person's life like Peter.
And he does deal with it. The 3rd time he asks him, it's so clear what he's referencing to. That's the 3rd time is when Peter gets hurt.
Gets hurt, yeah.
Because it's like, this is what you do. I know. We all know. Yeah. I knew we were going to talk about it, and now I know.
Now it's here.
Now it's here. Now the moment's come, and you've made. You're making a point, obviously, that we're still connected, we're still in love, and that almost hurts more.
Yeah,
it almost hurts more than just the hammer coming down.
Yeah,
God's grace.
Yeah,
hurts because it's hard for us to accept.
Yeah.
That's what the writer of Hebrews says. Why do you think God instituted the entire sacrificial system? Because you simply could not believe that you were forgiven. God didn't need blood.
It's the ultimate reality, isn't it?
God didn't need the sheep. He didn't need the pigeons, as though God was like, if you just give me more blood, then I could forgive you.
Yeah.
Hebrews literally says it was for your conscience.
Yeah.
That God had to institute all of that. It was never his desire, never his design, never his plan. But the lengths that God and Jesus is willing to go to show that no matter what you do, no height, no depth, no power.
That's right.
Nothing is going to separate you from my love. When will you simply accept that?
That's incredible.
Hard for us to stomach.
Yeah.
And hard for us to stomach for other people who have hurt us.
Yeah.
That they too are forgiven.
Yeah. It's already there.
That's hard.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Welcome to the Christian walk.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just I don't know, there's certain stories that really resonate. I'm sure you have your stories in the Bible that just kind of like hit you. This is one of those for me, because again, Peter goes on to do, and if he would have just lived there, like if he would have never really opened up his heart in that moment to allow God's grace to be poured in that moment, and just went back to fishing, he would have never made the impact that he could have made by shutting the door to his past. I think Jesus knew that, and I think Jesus, obviously, like you said, John, it needed to be talked about. It's like one of those things where I shared, like, I think, peroxide was made and created for parents to pour that into their kids' cuts so they could watch it bubble,
Was that called something? In England, we had like this orangey...
that was methylate. We called that methylate.
I had that too as a kid. I remember it came in a bottle. See, we'd called it something different.
Okay.
So you were saying methylate. This is a total tangent, by the way. You'll have to go listen to the message if you haven't heard it. But it had that sort of almost burnt orangey.
Yes, that's exactly.
Still clear.
Yes,
but so that was.
But it had the orangey stuff like when you
cotton buds.
Oh man,
straight on
fire. I'm talking. Feels like your arms falling off. It hurts so bad.
So clearly that stuff. Yeah. Oh my gosh,
fire.
Yeah. This is when I was very. This would have been, 90. It was 1990.
It was the right.
Like that.
Well, yeah, it was the right color. Because it felt like fire. Yeah. Like it was orangey.
And it had such a strong medicinal.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. No, it did. That was it. That was
floor
it.
Cleaner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was it. Probably shouldn't have done that. But
just bleach.
Let's just throw bleach on it.
Bleach and dirt. Sorry. Anyway.
No, we digress. But But it is that was that moment where God's grace started to pour into his life, and that's why it hurt. Like you said, that's why it hurts. It hurts.
People don't expect that about their own healing.
Yeah.
That the healing process hurts.
Yeah.
Like you said, the methylate goes in.
Yeah.
And it's it's good for you.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to accept. And when I read a letter that I wrote to my dad, and I remember writing in it, I never thought that the forgiveness of myself is something that I have to revisit again and again.
Man.
And that's a process too.
Yeah.
So whatever failure you've had in the past, however you've messed up, sometimes you think, I've dealt with this and I'm 5 years on, and then there'll be that emotion, there'll be that way, there'll be that song, there'll be that smell, something that just brings the floodgates of memory.
Yeah.
And all of those feelings of shame straight back to the surface again. And you question whether you're really past it.
Yeah.
And it's just that continual process of reminding yourself, no, I don't live there.
Yep.
I have been forgiven for this.
That's right.
I am loved. I did make a mistake, but it's simply a scar now. I'm not going to reopen these wounds again.
Boom. That was it, man. You just shut the door on it.
Shut the door.
You did. I mean, that's exactly what you did. You shut the door to the past because it just wants to try to creep back in.
It does.
It just wants to ease its way back into your life, and it's almost like one of those things. I think it's is it in Exodus in the Old Testament where sin is crouched? The Bible says sin is crouching at your door
like a tiger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ready to pounce.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it is just so ready when you're tired, when you're weak, when you're frustrated, or something else is going wrong in your life.
Yeah.
And then somehow you connect that dot. You get fired from your job and then you remember the divorce from 20 years ago. Nobody loves me, see?
That's right. There you go.
And you connect dots that were never meant to be connected.
Yep.
And it all gets conflated into sort of one big emotion that we run away with.
Yeah.
And you have to catch yourself quickly.
Yeah.
And like you say, you have to shut the door to that. And there's really simple ways of doing that. You talked about listening to worship music, for example.
Yeah.
Or praying.
Yeah.
Or
it's just shifting our thoughts, shifting our minds, our hearts towards something. And it's really, it's magnifying something greater than the emotion in that moment, and there's, listen, we're emotional beings. God has created us that way. Emotions are not bad. It's just those type of emotions can wreck us as well. Like you just have to be aware of it, like where it's taking you. Is it taking you in a good space or a space of healing, or a place of, no, you're starting to pick it back up again and start to relive and revisit and just kind of like go back to that moment and then accept what that's saying about you. And it's the opposite really of what God has said about you. And you just have to, those are the things where you just have to be more self-aware and of your own life and what the enemy's trying to do. Because at the end of the day, he's out to rob, steal, kill, and destroy your life.
Yeah.
And Jesus brings life and increase, and that's where we want to land.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great. That's a great way to land it. Like what areas of your life do you feel like you're being robbed in?
Yeah.
That's not from God.
That's right. Things that are stolen, trying to destroy you, which is, again, in the Greek, it's render useless.
Yeah.
To destroy.
Yeah.
And those are the things that we're gonna end with. So I hope that in some way that this podcast enriched your life.